right, pie graphs. All right, so remember, these ones that we're showing you today are only used for categorical data. All right, so pie graphs, hopefully you kind of got an idea what a pie graph looks like. Right, we're going to be creating these, right, is the total quantity of 100%, which is represented in the graph, right? So each wedge, of course, is a circle that's going to represent it. When we go into these, right, you're going to go, when you create these, right, I'm going to do a little circle. I know it's going to be, of course, I know I got a tablet, so I'm kind of cheating here. But, oops, undo. Get this out of the way. When you're creating these, okay, when you finally start drawing it out, 0% is up here, and you're going to go in a clockwise manner, right? So this would be 90% here, right? And you're going to keep going, and this is going to give you 180, I'm sorry, degrees, sorry, not percent, degrees, right? And then from here, of course, is going to give me 270 degrees, 270 degrees. And then, of course, that just gives me right back to 0, right? So that's the path. You don't ever go counterclockwise. You're always going clockwise, okay? So noon, right, is starting at the 0, okay? It's best to start with your biggest pieces first, right, and then work down. All right, so how do we construct this? Well, the first thing, right, we need to start with a frequency table. So we got to create a frequency table, right, write the data and find out the total count. So here we got our table. We just haven't gotten our total count. So we're going to have to go in here, right, and add 11 plus 6, 6 plus 8, 8 plus 15, right, 15 plus 20, 20 plus 25, and then plus 15. So our total is 100, right? That's our total. It's the total amount of people, total amount of items, whatever. That's the total, right? Then after that, right, we finished that one. So now we need to find the relative frequency. Okay, so hopefully you remember how to do relative frequency is just part over whole. So in other words, we have 11 read out of 100, right? So my relative frequency would be 11%. Right? Pretty simple. And you're just going to go straight through, right? So 100 is pretty easy. So we know that this is, right, 6%, 8%, 15%, 20%, 25%, and 15%. All right, so we've got our pretty much our relative frequency table, but now we need to help us break it down to put it in a pie graph, right? So remember, pi's circle is 360, right? So 360 is what we're going to be dealing with. So we're going to grab this relative frequency we have, and we're going to multiply it, right, by 360 degrees, right? So if I go in here into my calculator and I multiply the 11%, right, if you don't know, it's 0.11, right? And we're going to multiply that by 360 is going to give us the degrees to help us create our pie graph. So when I get that in a calculator, you'll see that you end up getting 39.6 degrees. Now, we're not going to get into decimals. You want to go into a whole number. So we're going to round, and so that would give us 40%. I'm sorry, 40 degrees, right? And you do that same thing for the next one. So if you got 6%, of course it's 0.06, right? We're going to multiply it again by 360, right? This one gives us about 21.6. Again, we're going to round up. So I'm going to say 22%, right? 22, I'm sorry, degrees. I get those tongue twists, sorry, degrees. Right, and we just coded each one, right? So 8% times 360, right, is going to give me 29 degrees. 15% is going to give me 54 degrees. 20% is going to give me 72 degrees. 25 is going to give me 90 degrees. And 15 is going to give me 54 degrees. So we're going to be able to use a protractor, right? So we're going to got this one done. We're going to need a protractor, right, and measure out the number of degrees on the circle, right? So we got to go here and measure this out. So I already pre-wrote a circle for y'all so that you're not having to go through this. Find your center, right, and then you're going to need to turn around and measure everything out, right? So I'm going to go and remember, straight up, right? That's 0 degrees, right? And so my biggest piece, right, was blue, and we know that's 90 degrees, right? So hopefully you know what 90 degrees looks like, right? It's got a right angle. Move this a little bit. So I know that's 90 degrees, right? 90. I'll eventually go and erase this, but just so you can see what we're doing here. Right, 90 degrees. Right, my next biggest piece, right, is the purple, right, 72 degrees. So then I'm gonna use my protractor, and if you need help, I'll show you how to use a protractor to measure it out. And so we're gonna measure out 72 degrees, right? So I'm gonna come on here, and I'm eyeballing it and just kind of guessing 72 degrees, right? So this is gonna go in here. And then I keep going, right? And so pink could be my next piece. Pink is, let's see, 54 degrees. So it's not that. There's 54, right? Green is my next one. So green is also 54. So I want to kind of make these look, I got to measure it out, make them look even. Okay. Then we have our red, which is 11%. Then we have our yellow, which is 8%, and then we have our orange at 6%. So we're gonna kind of make it like that. There we go. Of course, you have a protractor, so you'll get it more accurate than I am. So now that we've got them measured out and we drew our lines, where's my eraser? Oops. Okay, we're gonna start labeling and getting everything detailed. Okay, so we're gonna use this table, right, and mark everything out. So remember, you're all gonna be using a protractor. All right, do your best to estimate. Don't forget to label everything. So you can also color code if you want to also. So we know that my first one, I'm just gonna kind of shade it in. Oop, nope. Right. So this piece right here, that's my blue, right? And I know my blue was 25%, right? So you're gonna have to do this for each one. We got our orange. Let's see, oh, I'm going backwards, sorry, purple. Let's go purple. So purple. Right, and purple was 20%, right? So we're gonna label here purple, 20%, right? And then we go through each one, right? So we're gonna do pink, and I would do a lot neater if it was, but I'm timing myself on this, so I gotta go fast on this, sorry. So pink, right? So 15%. And then, oops, sorry, that's a percentage sign. And then, of course, we got green, red, yellow, and orange, right? So I'm just going to do these real quick. So I'm just going to label it out. So we've got green, which, oh my goodness. Green, which is 15%, right? We've got red, that's 11%. We've got yellow, right, which is 8%. And then we have orange, which is 6%, so orange. There you go, okay? So you have to have the titles, right, and the percentage of each one, okay? Now, you can, and it's probably best so that you don't get, right, when you label this, that you can use a color pattern with it, but you gotta use a code key, okay? So a color pattern with a code key, so a code key, right, you would write it over here, write out the name, right, and then the color, right, and color it in so you know, and then put it in, okay? Right, so again, right, you're gonna round, right? So this is gonna help us draw it. So the rounding error that we're doing here, right, it's gonna make them imprecise. So they're not, the rounding is not gonna be reported into our category, if that makes sense. All right, so try out your practice on your own.